anything against Israel under that umbrella of like anti-Semitism, which is fucking absurd. Like, you can criticize the U.S. government all you want, but if you criticize Israel, like, we're gonna fucking throw you in jail, like, that's craziness. Like,
well, so basically what you've just said is that means by de facto, Benjamin Netanyahu is the president of the United States and his government now reigns over ours.
I mean, clearly, you look at who you can't criticize, and that's who controls you.
Today, the Jews rule this world by proxy. They get others to fight and die for them. They invented socialism, communism, human rights, and democracy so that persecuting them would appear to be wrong, so they may enjoy equal rights with others. With these, they have now gained control of the most powerful countries.
This is something that has to be addressed. This is the consequences of what happens when we don't stand for righteousness.
This is what happens when you sell out and become a shell for something.
God, right now, would you protect the nation of Israel and protect those of us, not just our church, but every church in the world and in this nation that's willing to put their neck on the line and say, we stand with them.
These people.
God he's praying to is definitely not God the Father.
Are not real Christians, all of these evangelists, and they're always Israel, 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 God's chosen people. This has been put into people's minds since birth in the United States, and they...
MK Ultra, mind control, indoctrination.
They cannot separate that.
Our greatest allies should not be fucking extorting our politicians. They should not be blackmailing us. They should not be conducting false flag fucking attacks. Like, it's crazy. Like, we literally should be at war with fucking Israel 100 times over, and instead we're just sending them money, and it's fucking craziness. Like, it's absolute craziness when you look into this. And then you got all of our fucking congressmen, like, up there, like, you know, fucking clapping like fucking idiot seals, like, for this guy's stupid fucking speech. This is a convicted goddamn war criminal, conducting fucking genocide currently, sucking money out of our economy, providing us zero fucking benefit. And they always, like, say, oh, well, you know, they give us intelligence. Like, oh, yeah, fucking intelligence? Like, how about when Netanyahu testified in front of fucking Congress that, you know, Iraq had weapons of mass destruction?
There is no question whatsoever that Saddam is seeking and is working and is advancing towards the development of nuclear weapons. No question whatsoever. And there is no question that once he acquires it, history shifts immediately. If you look at those who harbor terrorists and those who support terrorists.
I guess I was looking for a connection between September 11th and my understanding why we went to the Taliban is there was a connection there. They were harboring somebody that we believed did the act on September 11th.
Yes, that's the first reason why you did it.
Now you're going to take me from September 11th to Iraq somehow?
And he lied to Congress. And the intelligence that we used to take this country to war in Iraq and the Middle East was based off of intelligence from Israel, by the way. Israeli intelligence formed the bulk of the motivation behind these Middle Eastern wars.
In the days after the September attacks, there were countless rumors about strange coincidences surrounding the events. One report about a group of Middle Eastern men spotted the morning of September 11th parked just across the river from New York City has not gone away.
3, 2, 1.
Of their presence has led to questions about whether Israel was conducting espionage on U.S. soil.
140 Israeli individuals have been arrested and detained in what government documents describe as, quote, an organized intelligence gathering operation designed to, quote, penetrate government facilities. The FBI is now APB and all things militant nationwide. They're looking for a white Chevy van. If you see this van, you're asked to contact the FBI immediately.
I'm aware that some Israeli citizens have been detained. With respect to why they are being detained and the other aspects of your question, whether it's because they're in intelligence services or what they were doing, I will defer to the Department of Justice and the FBI to answer that.
This is a case that took the FBI and the CIA more than 2 months to sort out. It began when this woman was watching the Twin Towers burning from her apartment in New Jersey. She noticed 3 men on top of a van posing for pictures with the towers burning in the background.
And I could see that they were like happy. You know, they didn't look shocked to me. I thought it was very strange.
The witness called police, who stopped the van hours later and arrested 5 men. All 5, it turns out, were Israeli.
And you can see the 2 towers, a huge explosion now, raining debris on all of us. We better get out of the way.
Tripods set up in New Jersey, ready, waiting for the falling of the towers. I mean, look, the one thing you notice about these Talmudic agents is that time and time again, there's just too many patterns that connect and point one way. You know, whether it's Epstein and all those things stacking up perfectly, or this one, all these details stacking up perfectly, it seems to be funny that they just demand people to call it coincidental and move on. And I think people are getting fed up with the bullshit.
Then there was the strange case of Otigo. You may have heard me speaking about this in a prior episode. So Otigo, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but it was an instant messaging service. It was Israel-owned, and it was operated by Israel with headquarters that were based just 2 blocks away from the World Trade Center. Now, according to Haaretz, that is an Israeli-owned publication, check out this headline, which was published September 26th. That's 15 days after the attack. 15 days after 9/11, Haaretz says that Otigo workers were warned of the attacks. It says Otigo, the instant messaging service, says that 2 of its workers received messages 2 hours before the Twin Towers attack on September 11th, predicting that the attack would happen. And the company has been cooperating with Israeli and American law enforcement, including the FBI, in trying to find the original sender of the message, which predicted the attack. I mean, seriously, what on earth are we talking about here? There were some people who definitively knew that something was going to take place on that day. Some people came camera ready.
The fact that the Jews had prior knowledge of it, the dancing Israelis that were filmed and caught and went away and said they were there to document the event.
And at that point, we were taken for another round of questioning, this time related to our allegedly being members of Mossad. The fact of the matter is, we are coming from a country that experiences terror daily. Our purpose was to document the event.
There was a cell, one of these cells, across the Hudson River. And they got on the, this is the report, I emphasize, I don't know this for a fact, but there's several witnesses who say this happened. They got on the roof of the building to look across. They knew what was going to happen. They were waiting for it to happen, and when it happened, they celebrated. They jumped for joy.
A major terrorist manhunt began, and just 6 hours after the attack, the van was stopped at a roadblock by patrolman Scott DiCarlo.
We were asked to detain the van and the passengers. They were just removed from the vehicle, patted down for safety precaution, and detained.
911 call at 410 Park.
I think once the FBI arrived, one of them stated that they were on our side. There's something to that effect.
The police actually would not investigate. They said that they have nothing to do with that. And so it seems that they are, within their own communities, a protected class of citizen, which explains why they would get away dancing in the street on one of the most damning days in American history. Just look at their behavior. Certainly, this was something that they wanted. They celebrated it.
Benjamin Netanyahu said in a book in the 1990s that if we don't see the threat of militant Islam, then pretty soon militant Islam will bring down the World Trade Center.
The West really doesn't understand militant Islam. So I wrote a book in 1995, and I said that if the West doesn't wake up to the suicidal nature of militant Islam, the next thing you'll see is the militant Islam is bringing down the World Trade Center.
Nice prediction there, just a bit of psychic, was he? Like Israel did 9/11. It's got Israeli fingerprints all over it. And with any of that sort of stuff, you just got to say, Cubono who benefits. And the only people who benefited from 9/11 is Israel, and even Benjamin Netanyahu said that as well. So the one thing we are benefiting from at the moment is the attack on the World Trade Center.
Netanyahu said, quote, "We're benefiting from one thing, and that is the attack on the Twin Towers and Pentagon and the American struggle in Iraq."
I mean, they do these false flag attacks all the time. How much evidence do people need? And what would be the benefit for the Arab world blowing up Twin Towers? I mean, how have they benefited from this? Have a look at Iraq. Have a look at what we've done to the Arab world since that event happened. And look what Israel has got from that event happening. And ask yourself, who benefits?
Yeah, but then that side exploded. How did that side explode? It blew up insurance ago. Way after that one.
Well, there's one thing for sure if you look into 9/11, and that is every single thing the mainstream media and the government said about it is actually impossible. It's the craziest conspiracy theory ever. That a guy in a cave in Afghanistan blew up 3 towers in New York with 2 planes, which is impossible. And they all fell at free fall speed, which is not possible without controlled demolitions. They took lots of photos and pictures.
Well, it wasn't just controlled demolitions. We're going to get to that detail. They used advanced directed energy weapon technologies to literally atomically deconstruct the towers, turn them into dust, because there was no earthquake. They didn't break the water table, the bathtub. Otherwise, the Hudson River would have flooded downtown Manhattan. They made no earthquake, so the towers didn't fall. They disintegrated into dust.
Photos and pictures of themselves. There was the dancing Israelis dancing afterwards. The involvement is quite clear, and what's most clear is that the official narrative for it is all lies, absolutely all lies.
It was those who had the access, the ability to carry off what is an extraordinary operation. I mean, you're talking 4 different locations, 3 different buildings taken out, well, more actually. You have to have one hell of a lot of resources to even think to do something like this. So who would have had an opportunity to possibly bring down those buildings? Well, maybe the people who control the buildings, and who is that?
The American government rounded up 200 Israeli operatives after 9/11, during their 9/11 sweep. Muslims did it rather than Jews.
Maybe it wasn't the dude in the cave and the 19 box cutters who had the best ability to do this. Maybe it was the U.S. military, the enemy inside the gate, and those interests that have the political, military, and media power to be able to tell us a story so that it becomes true, even though it's patently an insult.
Donald Trump is on the line.
You look at Larry Silverstein, who's a terrific owner in New York and a very good friend of mine who I just called. I was very worried about him because I assumed maybe he was in the building. He took possession of the building 1 week ago. As you know, he just bought the World Trade Center.
Right. Lo and behold, 2 Jewish...
Oh, see, that should be another proof to you that Trump is not our friend. He is a... Hey, hold on, buddy. I'm doing a video right now.
Yeah. He asked his dad.
But this shows you that Trump is not for America at all. He's 100% for Israel. He's for the Jews, regardless whether he's a Jew or not. He's helping the synagogue of Satan, and he's in love with them. He benefits from them by your destruction, poverty, and torture and emotional and physical and mental abuse.
Billionaires.
And then deceiving you to worship him, thinking that he's actually benefiting you.
Buy 2 asbestos-filled buildings that are half empty of which the Port Authority was attempting to get out from under the liability and debt associated with these worthless buildings. Two Jewish billionaires named Frank Lowy and Larry Silverstein buy these buildings, and the fact is, the literal, truthful, undeniable fact is that when they purchased the lease on the Twin Towers, they literally transferred billions of dollars of liability over to themselves because the cost to extract the asbestos was in the billions. So you've got half-empty buildings with a precedent already of lung cancer associated with the asbestos. The Port Authority tried to get rid of it for over a decade and failed. And here come two Jewish billionaires who now take control of the buildings. And this is where Mossad had an open invitation into the buildings. Provably, undeniably, indisputably. And who were we told did the event? The Muslims. Oh, but wait, it gets better, doesn't it?
I remember getting a call from the fire department commander telling me that they were not sure they were going to be able to contain the fire. And I said, we've had such terrible loss of life. Maybe the smartest thing to do is pull it.
Your official response was that it was the firefighters. My question is, it was pretty clear that you meant the building, and if it was the firefighters, they already are outside the building by 12 because the water lines were broken.
Ask the question.
And the fire chief that you said you spoke to, Fire Chief Negro, denies talking to you on that day of 9/11. Can you answer those questions and address the theories against you?
I suggest everybody's consideration that we all look at the thousands of pages of testimony that have been rendered in the many years since 9/11, and let's use today's session for something that's...
Are you aware of testimony of bombs in the building before the building collapsed, sir? Are you aware of that testimony? Sir, there's testimony by Barry Jennings. Sir, you don't have to touch me. Listen, I'll walk away. All I'm asking is a question. I don't have to be kicked out. It's a legitimate question. You don't have to put your hands on me. But all I'm saying is, no, I'm not. I'm here asking. The question was not answered. That's why I have a grievance. Larry Silverstein was told not to come into work. That's why him, his daughter, and his son never showed up to work on 9/11. He put an insurance policy on the buildings. Reporters, do your job. Please ask some questions.
The reason I feel as good as I do is because we're back in Israel, and we love coming here. On the morning of 9/11, I'm getting ready, getting dressed to go to the dermatologist. Like clockwork, I had to. And that morning, I said to Clara, I said, sweetheart, I've got so much work to do down at the Trade Center. Cancel the dermatologist. I'm going down. And she said, you can't cancel again. You canceled last time. You cannot cancel again. And she got angry. Now, when you're married to somebody for 50 years and they get upset and they get angry and they start screaming, the world comes to an end. And I said, okay, I'm sorry. The words are yes, dear. Whatever you want, I'll do. Don't get angry. Please don't get angry. She said, okay, but you're going to the dermatologist, you're going this morning, and you're not going downtown. Wow. Suddenly, the phone rings. It's the captain of our boat, docked at Chelsea Piers, not far from where we live and not far from the Trade Center. And he said, Mrs. Silverstein, is everything okay with Mr. Silverstein? She said, of course. Why? He said, turn on your television set. That's when we saw the North Tower in flames. And we saw the plane circling around before it slammed into the South Tower and caused it to end up in flames. And therein was the day of the disaster of 9/11. And so we lost almost 3,000 people. It was a miracle. My life wasn't lost because she kept me from going down to the Trade Center. She just said, "You've got to go to the dermatologist." By the way, I never made it to the dermatologist that day. But at least my intentions.
Oh, yeah. See, he's just lying about the whole sob story that it's all false.
were right. Now, what I quickly had to do was find out what my obligations were, because I had signed a contract and now own the Trade Center. I had to rebuild like kind, like quality, and I had an obligation to collect the insurance proceeds from the policies, because that's the only place the money could come from the insurance proceeds. That was my job, my obligation, because they own the policies. And we're gonna get the money from the insurance companies with which to build. We went through an enormous amount of effort to find out what happened on 9/11 to cause the Twin Towers to collapse, and at the same time decide how to build a building safer and stronger and impenetrable.
This is the key bit right here.
So that we'd feel safe in it, and everybody else would feel safe in it also. We scoured the world for the best engineers. Where do you think we ended up? There's a country that apparently has lots of problems in making its buildings explosion-proof. It's called Israel. And guess what? It's got some of the best engineers in the world who understand safety in big buildings.
And directed energy weapons, and much of this stolen high tech that they inherited, from 200 years ago when they destroyed and reset the last civilization.
Why? Because they have problems with that for the last 40, 50 years. They keep having explosions in their country. Next thing you know, we've got the designs of the building. And the first design meeting was in April of 2000. And the first design meeting was in April of 2000.
April of 2000. When did September 11th, 2001 happen?
And construction began shortly thereafter in 2002.
Thousands of people's lives were lost on 9/11. There are thousands of pages of testimony as to what transpired. Millions of hours were spent analyzing what caused those Twin Towers to come down and thereafter settle. All of that is public record. We don't have to spend any more time on that.
Then why doesn't the government have an explanation? You're a witness. Then why doesn't the government... Then why doesn't the government have an explanation, sir? If you do, why don't they?
First responder heard the countdown to blow building 7 from 1 till 10.
Enough.
Okay,
The topic is the future of
Craig Barber heard bombs in the building. First responder.
The topic is our future and not about how we murdered everybody and we're trying to keep it covered up, and how we're slowly taking you over because we're parasites and bloodsuckers, and we're of the synagogue of Satan. Just shut up and take your vaccines and die.
Our educational mission here, which is this is education. You don't want to answer the questions, but first responders, they know what happened and they're coming forward. So time is running out. So it's your point.
Rudy Dent, who was a friend of mine, who was the chief fire investigator on the...
Anyway, so that's, you can go check this out. Occupied World Premiere by Stu Peters. You can go watch the whole thing for yourself. Gets into a number of different things. But let's do rumble.com. Well, I'm not trying to do that. Let's do... Judy Wood. There we go. Where did the towers go? We're not going to play the whole thing.
The limitations are mental limitations. There's suction or... See anymore? Maybe you take me more seriously if I will. No. It's there. It's truth. The evidence is always the truth. Assumptions are where you go get off track. So let's start. Once upon a time, there were two buildings, two towers, and then they went away. Well, third tower and a fourth tower. This is all that was left. This is just that yellow corner of that building. And all that was left. To remind you what was there beforehand, and here's just that little corner is all that was left. This is the dawn of a new age. There exists some technology that can make a building of that size go away. It has the ability to direct energy in such a way to disrupt the molecular bonds. It's also, energy is directed as opposed to being kinetic energy. Kinetic energy like a wrecking ball or a missile or something solid. We're going to go through the data and see that you can eliminate about every kind of kinetic energy weapon. And we know this technology exists. The whole world saw it, even though they were told they saw something else. They saw what happened. And this indeed is a technology that can be used for free energy. It doesn't need to be used for evil purposes. Again, that's all that was left, just a story or two of that. And would you believe it, that 14 people survived in there? So we're going to learn is that the towers didn't burn up, nor did they slam to the ground, but turned into dust in midair. That's not a collapse, that's dust squirting up. Why did so few people see that? Because they were told to see a collapse, maybe? There's three main things that keep people from seeing what's going on. Problem-solving skills, groupthink, peer pressure, and that they're terrified by the implications. We're going to just focus on the problem-solving aspect. If I tell you, the answer is 27. Am I right? Well, what's the question? What's the problem I'm solving? If you don't know the problem, how do you know if the answer is right or wrong? You first have to define a problem before you can solve it. And it can be referred to as a syntax error with crime. And they take their pick from this list of things, and then they go cherry picking and searching for the data that's going to support their theory. So in essence, what they've done is determine the problem. But what happens if it was something else that they didn't take into consideration? They'll never get to the right answer. And that actually is one of the key things in a cover-up. You get people arguing about guesses, about assumptions about what the problem is, and they never look at the problem. If you don't look at the problem, you can't solve it.
Yeah, see? You see the parallels in that statement? Very telling.
So what they're using as a theory to determine what happened, that's the wrong direction. We have to start out with what happened. You collect data, and the data always tells you what happened. And from that, you determine how it happened. But only after you first establish what happened can you determine how it happened. If you don't know what it is, you can't determine how it happened. For example, look at these beams falling with dust trailing behind them, opaque dust. Let's say you're going to impersonate one of those beams. So you cover yourself with dust and jump off the top of the building. From the ground up, would someone see that dust trailing off of you? No. You need more dust. Okay, let's say you get a couple of armloads of flour and eject it out as you're falling. Can you impersonate this? No, that's opaque dust. It initially blocked out all of the sunlight, 100% of the sunlight, so it was pitch black. It's very dense dust. And you come to the realization that these pieces of material are becoming dust. They're frothing up into dust as they fall. And they didn't hit the ground. But if you didn't know that these turn to dust, and you start out with an assumption, you wouldn't get to the right answer, because do you know of anything that could turn a building to dust in midair? Something turned it to dust in midair. So it's important to first determine what happened, then how it happened, and only then who did it or why they did it. But again, we're just going to focus on what happened. The towers didn't slam to the ground. If they had slammed to the ground, there would be over 1 million tons of debris left stacked up on the ground. That didn't happen. Manhattan would have been flooded. Well, as we'll see, the towers were built in the Hudson River with a dike around them. If you slam 1 million tons of debris down onto the dike, you're going to break it. Didn't happen. And if you slammed 1 million tons of debris to the ground, it's going to make a thud. The seismic signals did not reflect that. Those are the 3 biggest issues, but there's a whole lot of others as well. But we'll focus on those initially. The lack of debris, the fact the bathtub wasn't damaged, and the low seismic recordings. There's all sorts of other things, and toasted cars, of course, is one of the favorite things. And then in the second part, I talk about other pieces of information, other data that shows more about what technology is involved. But remember, you first have to establish what happened. Lack of debris. Again, if over 1 million tons of debris slammed the ground, you'd see a pile of debris left over. All right, you go to work on a nice September morning. Now there's Tower 1, there's Tower 2, and you work down here in Bankers Trust. So you're going to go into your office there in Bankers Trust, and then you're going to look out the window and see what you can see. Down here, You look out the window. What's it going to look like? That's looking out that window. Air-conditioned office, looking across the street, and whoops, where did the building go? This is right after 9/11. Tower 2 is basically missing. Tower 1 is missing over there. I think everyone have to agree there's not enough stuff left piled up on the ground. So again, we're looking out there. Now we're going to look the other direction. And this main body goes missing. Just the north wing is left. The building just went missing. That's building 4. It was a 9-story building. So this is what was there beforehand, and it just basically all went away. And a satellite image shows, all sorts of holes that were in those buildings. The middle part of building 6 is gone. It looks like a post hole digger cored it out. You have holes over here on Liberty Street. Even some holes in Vesey Street. And notice again that North Wing is remaining, but the main body's gone. And this is Bankers Trust, where you're looking out the window, seeing a non-building across the street. Few people talk about this building. It's a 22-story skyscraper. Well, it would be the tallest building in most small towns. It went away except for that last little corner. And building 7 over here as well. Every building with the WTC prefix was destroyed that day. So we're going to look at this direction. Now, a lot of people talk about hearing the BBC announce early that Building 7 went away. Well, CNN did the same thing for 1 Liberty Plaza, but it's still there. They just get excited and want to be the first to report. And we're going to go down and look on the ground and see what it looks like down in here. Looking at the front door of Tower 1. So here we are down on the ground. There's Tower 1, north and south walls. The ambulance that was parked in front of the front door of Tower 1. It doesn't look clobbered by anything. This picture, I believe, was taken on 9/11, later in the day. I don't see any big steel beams on the ground. There's aluminum cladding. The towers were built with steel columns on the outside that were covered with aluminum cladding. And you see the aluminum cladding. The ambulance looks pretty good. This was the day after 9/11. Peter Jennings in the studio. Do we have sound?
Where is all the rubble gone? And have you been able to, is there any way you can answer that question?
I'm sorry, Peter, I didn't get the question.
Okay, I apologize. Jackie Judd and several other people keep asking us, when you look at where the towers used to stand, there is surprisingly so little rubble. Where did all the rubble go?
It's a very good question, Peter, and I have asked some people who've been doing some of the rescue and recovery work this morning. If you look behind me, you can see the very remains, the skeletal remains of the World Trade Center. And one volunteer, Robert Gerlinski, explained to me the reason there's so little rubble is that all of it simply fell down into the ground and was pulverized, evaporated.
This is vital information.
Well, you got the evaporated part right. Partly.
I really feel for George Stephanopoulos. He's got this job telling the world what's going on there, and that's the best he could do. And we humans tend to keep asking questions until we're given an answer. We don't stop to think if the answer makes sense. So what he is telling us is that it's obvious there's a big lack of material there. And here's an elevation map of what was left. And you see Building 4 went missing, the holes in Building 6. Here's a firefighter in stairwell B.
I heard this very, very loud noise above me. It was just a tremendous roar.
Right down here, while that picture was taken.
It was above, and it sounded like it was coming towards you, and then the wind, a very, very fierce wind, and my helmet started lifting me up off the ground, and so that's when I crouched down. The next thing I just crouched down. I got to the corner of the staircase by the railing, and I just got as small as I could possibly get. Because I'm not a big guy to begin with, so fortunately I'm not. So I got in and I literally, I guess the best way to describe it, I tried to crawl into my fire helmet. That's what I wanted to do, just to protect myself. And I wasn't sure what was going on. I thought the building might be coming down, and I figured, okay, this could be it, and I was a little angry. I just, so like, damn it, like, why me? Why, I'm beautiful. I'm going to die in the World Trade Center on a beautiful summer morning. It's like a little denial and disbelief sets in, and, so.
Summer morning? September is summer?
Then I started getting hit with stuff, it was just, debris was hitting me, and, it went dark. And then the next thing was just total silence. Nothing. No wind, no noise, no light, nothing. And then I started hearing noises. I started hearing like moaning, and guys were starting to communicate, yell out. These were the guys that I was trapped with. They're calling out, who's there? You guys are right, blah, 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 and this kind of thing. And I realized there was other people. I wasn't alone, because when you're alone in a situation like that, they talk of like existential isolation. It's like, and then when you find out you're with other people, it makes you feel a lot better, even though you're in a very bad situation.
Like all of us are right now. But if you've gotten this far in the video, then you're one of those people. A few people. And I'm glad that I'm not alone in this understanding.
At least there's other people. But then the strangest thing happened. This beam of sunlight came right in on us, like about 8 inches long, but it was clearly sunlight. It was all dirty, full of debris, and it looked like pepper was floating around in it, sort of. But it was sunlight, and I'm like amazed now. It's a 110-story building above us, and I'm looking up at the sun.
He was right at the base of this building.
But when you came out, you had no idea, no way to make.
At the base of this building while this picture was being taken. And all 14 of them walked out on their own steam. Let's see. Here again is where they were. Jay Jonas was one of the ones with them. And so I looked and said, guys, there used to be 106 floors above us, and now I'm seeing sunshine. There's nothing above us. That big building doesn't exist. Then later said, these are the biggest buildings in the world. And I didn't see one desk, one chair, one phone, nothing. Another survivor described walking out onto an empty football field. This is from the base here. This is.
I just suggest you go look up Judy Wood.
Live. I started calling them out by name.
Just her whole study in this. It's 2-hour long.
Geiger counter measurable radiation that came from there.
She breaks it all.
Here are some relative numbers. If compared to what was measured at the World Trade Center in terms of tritium, the background levels are 1/50th. What was measured with cold fusion is 50 times that, but that was in a cell. Keep in mind, the World Trade Center had fire hoses on it. The hurricane rained on it. It was.
Background is 2.5. World Trade Center, 120. 2.5, 120. That's like 65 times background radiation. So she goes into, it's a whole theory about, and it goes in with some of John Hutchinson's technology and his discoveries, but he only is just scratching the surface of this. But the whole point of this is that from the previous that we heard from the Israelis themselves, that they know engineering extremely well from a certain place. It's called Israel, or the state of Israel. It's not real Israel, not biblical Israel. That's what they do. Masquerade as ministers of righteousness, but they're actually the synagogue of Satan. Just like no marvel, Satan masquerades as an angel of light. So, yeah, I suggest you go look into some of those different things. Pretty provable now.